Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at John Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. Okay, before we dive into Jason Sobel, which rumor has it he's staying at either Steven Spielberg or Leonardo DiCaprio's villa behind their expansive mansion, I need to tell you about my friends at Gametime. Go to your smartphone right now. Download the Gametime app. They happen to be the official ticketing app of this podcast. And when you sign up, use the promo code GOLOW, GOLOW, get $20 off your first pair of tickets. You want to go to a baseball game. You want to go to a football game this fall. You want to go to a college football game, concert, Taylor Swift, comedy shows, you name it. My friends at Gametime, fastest growing ticketing app in America. Download the app right now. Use the promo code GOLOW, $20 off. Do it and do it now. Okay, Sobel, how are the Hollywood Hills?
This place is unbelievable. I know you've been here before. I had never been here. The way it was described to me before getting here was as if they took Central Park in New York City and put a world championship golf venue in the middle of it. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then I got here and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. I mean, we are not, I think people will hear, oh, they're in LA, so it's SoCal, but it's a big place. And, they have some places where you can see a golf course, but this is in the middle of the city. I mean, we are like in the foothills of Beverly Hills, Hollywood down the street. I mean, there is stuff going on this is not like out in the burbs somewhere. We are like right in the middle of it. And the golf course, man, it is pure. You and I were talking before we hit the record button, but it is rustic. It is fun looking. A lot of times you get to a major championship and you're like, yeah, it looks pristine, but it also looks a little artificial. This place, it looks like it's been here since the beginning of time. Like when Earth started, there was a golf course right on this property. It's an unbelievable piece of property, and I can't wait for this thing to get started. I think it's going to be a really, really fun week.
Tell me if you like this comp. It's probably this course is much more famous, but it's the West Coast version a little bit of Augusta. You feel honored being on the property, easier to get on and play, but has the California. It's a little looser. Our rules on the West Coast, we're not as tight. We don't have the old school Southern, no phones, shirt tucked. It's a little looser, but you feel on the course and on the property like, yeah, this is not everyone gets to come here. Now the difference is, I think it was pretty shocking. I mean, they've had NCAA events, they've had the Walker Cup, but they don't have many professional events, and you're out there right now. It's not exactly fan friendly like some properties in terms of all the crevices of the course, right?
Right. No, it's hard to walk around here. I mean, if you're an older person, you got an injury, you're trying to walk around, you're not going to have a fun time trying to follow your favorite group of this golf course. I don't know that I'm making the Augusta comparisons. Maybe just the clubhouse and like the back patio with the table set up there has an Augusta.
That's what I'm saying. It kind of comes out of nowhere. You don't know what's there. I'm not saying the course comp, the hills and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, course comp, I still, and even the feel of it, I'll give you West Coast Shinnecock, which someone else mentioned to me earlier today. And I'm like, yeah, it's definitely got a lot of shinny feel to it. Just being in LA.
What's your vibes from walking around there, talking to players, talking to caddies, talking to coaches? What's the feel out there? It's, it feels like the merger is well behind us and people focused on the golf at hand, or is that still a topic? Merger might be strong, but whatever the hell that thing was last week.
Whatever it was, no, people are still definitely talking about it. It's cooled off a little bit for a major championship because, look, it's a major. Guys are out here trying to win a U.S. Open. There are only 4 of these a year, and so while they'll be asked about it I think in the pre-tournament interviews that players are doing, I think there's a lot of talk about what's going on and what the future of golf might look like. But I think once we get to Thursday, it's all about this golf course, and so. I think players kind of understand, like, hey, you can miss it a little bit here and still be okay. A lot of it's going to come down to luck, quite frankly. And what the USGA has done this week is essentially they're going to move tee box around. I think social media is it's gone viral. The 290-yard par 3 11th hole, and everyone's like, oh my God, it might play 210 one day, it might play 250. They're going to move around tee boxes. They are going to essentially and this is something they try to do every year at the US Open, but I think they're going to do an even better job of it this year. They want players to have to think about exactly what they're going to do on every single shot. Jordan Spieth and Michael Greller, on every single shot, they're thinking about like, well, you want to do this? Well, I'm trying to do that. Well, and they're talking their way through a shot. That's going to be all 156 players this week. Every single guy is going to be trying to figure out when they get to their ball. They don't want a player just grabbing a 9-iron saying, I'm just going to hit 9 here because it's standard stock shot. I don't think there is a standard stock shot here. You're going to have to work the ball. And because of that, the players that I'm looking at are the creative players, the most artistic players. I think those are the guys who are going to thrive this week. And we can make our own lists of creative, artistic players. I did on my radio show yesterday on SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio. Gary Williams was filling in. He was my co-host. We had in our top 5 creative players, we had 4 of the 5 same names. So it's not really a mystery as to who those players are, if indeed this golf course plays to those most creative players.
So who's your pick?
Cam Smith. I've got, instead of a 1 and a 2, I've got a 1A and a 1B this week. Cameron Smith's my 1A. First of all, I love the number. He's 28-1, 30-1 in some books. I think that other than Brooks Koepka, who of course won the PGA Championship last month, most of the LIV players are still a little undervalued in the marketplace. Cameron Smith at 28-1, I think is a really good number. Obviously, he can win a major championship. We saw it at the Open last year. His short game's fantastic. And for my money, he's the best putter in the world and probably the best clutch putter, the best putter when you're playing in a major championship. I watched him at Oak Hill a couple of rounds, and he was not just pouring in putts. He was like putting it in the middle of the cup. I mean, thing was going in a thimble. And then 1B for me is the other most artistic, most creative player that we have in the game right now. No surprise, Jordan Spieth. And we've seen Jordan trending in the right direction for a while now. I don't think that his lack of distance, even though he's really not short, he has a reputation of like, well, he's not DJ, he's not Rory. He's a lot longer. He actually averaged better driving distance last year than Tony Finau. I mean, that's saying a lot for Jordan Spieth. So the fact that he's going to turn, and you'll see it this week, he's going to turn double bogeys into pars, where you're looking at it like, he can't get out of this. That's jail right there. And all of a sudden, he'll somehow get up and down. That's what's going to win you this golf tournament, keeping the momentum going, keeping the bogeys off the card. And I think those two guys are my favorites to do that.
I would say the heavy favorite, Scottie Scheffler, depending on where you look, you can find him like, 6-7-1, is a very artistic player. When he went, toe to toe with Cam 2 years ago and won the Masters and chipped it in, was that hole 3. But his putting has been atrocious because he's been the best tee to green player. And really, a short game it might not be Cam Smith, Jordan Spieth in their peak, but it's light years better than most guys on tour. Out there is the question mark, just his putting. I'm sure he's not that. He has played here before. I think you wrote that, or someone tweeted that.
Walker Cup, yeah.
Yeah, so he's seen these greens. Clearly, it's a lot different for a U.S. Open. How nervous? I mean, at that number, it seems pretty crazy, but he's in every fucking tournament he plays in.
Look, I've got him number 3 on my list, and I feel like I'm being too negative about Scottie Scheffler. That's how good he is tee to green right now. But yeah, the putter scares me. Look, if you're going to win a U.S. Open at some point, you've got to hole a bunch of 8, 10, 12-foot putts. And I'm just not very confident that Scottie Scheffler is confident in himself to go do that. So I just don't know that Scottie Scheffler can get that done on the greens. But yeah, tee to green, he's better than anybody right now. That performance of the Memorial tee to green was unbelievable. Same thing really at Colonial the week before. So hitting it really well right now. If I'm spending my money this week on the board, I'm not taking a guy who's 7-1 that's having trouble with the flat stick right now and at this kind of event.
To me, you look Koepka, 10-11-1. If he was on the PGA Tour and just playing with these other guys, it feels like he would be 8-1. You get a
Probably.
couple, like you said, a lot of these LIV guys gets dinged, but the difference is this guy has proven this year. I mean, he had a disaster at the Masters and he's in the last group. Disaster for him. He said today that, and I don't think it's hyperbole. I do think he believes it. And how could he not? That he thinks 10 majors for himself is in play, at 33 years old. Seems extreme, but unlike the guys you listed, Cam, Spieth, and even Scottie, he's more boring as a player. The way he wins, it's not as crazy because he's not screwing up and having to make miraculous shots. But I have a hard time. I'm not going to bet him, but if you tell me, like, I expect him to be in the mix, so maybe I should. I haven't decided yet. I'm out on for sure, but being out there, do you think he's vaulted himself back into the previous 17, 18, the guy that we talked about in 19 and 20 is like every major, the way people talk about him?
So a few things here. First of all, Golf Channel did a segment, I believe it was last night, where they talked about the big three, which was Scottie Scheffler, Jon Rahm, and not Rory McIlroy, but instead Brooks Koepka, whom he's playing with for the first two rounds. I thought that was very, very interesting, very telling for this week. Secondly, look, we can sit here for a week before every major championship go, well, it should play to these kind of players. And, the metric I'm looking at is this one. And who's a pretty good long shot? It's this guy. And honestly, we could do these pods in 10 seconds and the entire analysis might be, well, Koepka's playing and he's ridiculous at major championships, so he's going to win. Boom. End of story. Game over. That might be all the analysis we need. It's like, take all the money that you're putting on a couple of other outrights and a couple of long shots and some prop plays and a first round leader and everything you're doing, and just take it all and put it on Koepka, and Koepka might win, and you have a good chance of getting 11 times your money back on that bet. So I certainly, I don't want to fade him. It's a tough number to play, especially not having seen him play this golf course before. But would it surprise me if Brooks Koepka is the winner come Sunday? Not even in the least.
One long shot, just seeing a guy close to 90-1. Now, he's never won a tournament on the PGA Tour, but is the Gala short game. I saw Patrick Reed, which actually has a much longer resume of winning big, but both those guys in the 80 to 90 did a really good around the green. Thigala is a Southern California guy. Those two names, long shot, and anyone else kind of, even to me, a long shot in a major can start around 50-1.
So when it comes to long shots, if we're talking outrights, what I always like to point out is that there are long shots who they can be a nice top 10, top 20 play at a nice plus money number. But when it comes to a long shot outright, I want someone with win equity. Remember, if you come in second or you come in 156, your outright ticket is not going to cash. And so
trust me, I know
someone with a high ceiling. Yeah, exactly. I'm with you, dude. Hey, look, I've only bet Grillo, Hovland, and Taylor in the last 3 weeks. I'm doing just fine. Don't worry about it. But that said, some of the guys with bigger numbers next to their names that have that win equity that we've seen them do it before, Patrick Reed at 80-1, I think is a great number out there. He has a certain, he is a great player around the greens, and I think that's what's going to take this week. And I look at Siwoo Kim. Siwoo was a guy that, he'd show up every once in a while, win, and then we wouldn't see him for a year or two. And when we wouldn't see him, he'd play really badly. The floor was bottomless. All of a sudden, Siwoo, 18 of 21 made cuts this year, top 7 in 3 of his last 6. He's won in California. He's played well on linksy style golf courses, fast, firm golf courses. I think Siwoo's a really interesting play further down the board.
Yeah, when was I betting on? Oh, Memorial? Was that when he was in the mix? I Googled. I think he's made close to $5 million this year. Like Siwoo's playing well.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot of outrights. Some names I got for top 10. I mean, 2 Euros that have just played really well. They played well lately. Hatton and Fleetwood. I mean, Fleetwood has success in majors. Hatton feels like he's trending. Ricky Fowler's another guy who's having a really good season. Any guys that you like in that top 10 range?
Love it. Yeah, so I really like Fleetwood. Again, I can't bet him at the outright number. He's 0 for 119 now on the PGA Tour after the playoff loss last week, but he's obviously a really good player. He's a shorter number than Justin Thomas in most books right now. I can't bring myself to do that. Justin Thomas, I think when he's playing well, and he hasn't played well this year, when he's playing well, he's a top 5 player in the world, maybe a top 3 player in the world. I can't bring myself in good conscience to play Tommy Fleetwood at a shorter number than Justin Thomas. That said, Hatton, look, I was on Hatton last week. He's been playing lights out for about really 4 or 5 months now. That said, I look at Hatton and I go, he's obviously a guy that, what makes him entertaining is also what makes him a guy that I sometimes don't like to back just because he's combustible. I mean, look, this is a golf course that's going to get you frustrated. Do you want to bet Tyrrell Hatton on a golf course where it might take one bad bounce on the second hole and, you know, he goes into a bad spot and makes bogey, and all of a sudden it's like the world is ending on for Hatton. So as much as I like his game, I just don't know that I want to back him at a U.S. Open. Love Ricky Fowler this week. I probably have him too low in my ranking, but I do think he can post top 10. Another name that I have in top 10, Ryan Fox on a linksy golf course, hits a long way. Watch out for that name. I'm just kind of, it's like the one guy that, you know, the name kind of just jumped off the page for me. He's got 9 top 30s in his last 10 starts. So even if you don't like the top 10 play, I think you get him top 30 at a plus money number. He's a really good player. He's playing really well right now, and this should be his style of golf.
Well, speaking of, you know, they teach you number one thing in finance, buy low, sell high. If I would have told you before this year, for the last 5 years, you could get Justin Thomas around 40-1 in a major, it'd just be an auto bet.
I mean,
is it you're out there? Is it injury? Because you would say, in theory, this would be a course, good short game, good around the green. He's a pretty, you know, he just got a lot of different shots in the bag, but clearly he's had a terrible season for his standards. He feels off. I don't know, but you could argue just that number alone, if he does catch lightning in a bottle. You talked about Patrick Reed, win equity, won a lot of big tournaments. If he is in the mix, he's not afraid of the moment. That might just be an auto bet just based on the value. Again, if he's injured, then it's a stay away, but something's up.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't heard about an injury, but if you can get him at 45, 50-1, yeah, it's probably an auto play. Quite frankly, it's just a big enough number that you look at and you go, how bad would I feel if Justin Thomas goes out and wins this golf tournament? And I was sitting there thinking about him at 50-1 and said, no thanks. I'm going to pass because he's not playing well. You're going to be kicking yourself come Sunday evening if it does cash. So, you know, I wouldn't empty the mortgage out on that one, but I do think that JT is a decent play. Tony Finau is a guy that 6 months ago, if you had asked me about the U.S. Open, I just thought he fit the profile. Look at the guys that have won the U.S. Open over the last 6, 7, 8 years. It's been Koepka, DJ, DeChambeau, Woodland, John Rahm. Even last year, Fitz looks like he's 12 years old, but
he's hitting it far.
He gained a lot of distance. Yeah. He's hitting it far. He's got swing speed. Those are the types of players that win U.S. Opens now. This is a different U.S. Open setup. I don't think it's going to take a guy. It doesn't mean those guys can't win, but I don't think it has to be a guy like that. If it was, though, Tony Finau was going to be my guy. If we were going back to a Bethpage type setup, I thought Tony Finau would have been the guy. I just don't see him on this setup, but I still like him a lot, and he's still a pretty big number, 35, 40-1.
Okay, you know, a week ago we were reacting to the breaking news which we weren't even sure what it was, but it was 2 guys on CNBC that happened to be Jay Monahan and the dude that runs LIV/the PIF talking. A week later, now being out there for a couple days, texting all week long last week. What's the vibe? Like, do people feel like they know anymore, or is it still a lot of the players that came out of that meeting going, Jay didn't really have that many answers?
Still way more questions than answers. And I think, you know, I've had players from both sides, both PGA Tour and LIV, who are asking me what I know and what I think. And I'm like, I don't know. I was going to ask you the same thing. I don't think anyone knows right now. I mean, even the mixed signals we're getting from the people who made the deal. Jay Monahan has repeatedly said over the last week, hey, I don't know why we're calling this a merger. It's not a merger. And it was pointed out, well, the press release that you sent out said PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and Public Investment Fund have merged commercial operations. I don't know. Arbad sounded like a merger to me. So I still think there's a lot to be answered. I still think there's a lot to be figured out. My guess is if Jay Monahan was sitting right here next to me and I was asking him some of these questions, I don't think he has the answers yet. I don't think anybody has a lot of the answers yet. As far as some of the things that could stop this, look, you know me. I watch other people play golf for a living. Because that's
obviously
all
the
I'm qualified
element,
to do. Yeah. I mean, we get into antitrust lawsuits and you know, Department of Justice and subpoenas and Senate hearings, and I don't know. I literally had dinner with a buddy of mine the other night who's an attorney, and I go, so what's an antitrust lawsuit? He's like, all right, let me break it down for you. And so he started explaining some things. I'm very quickly starting to, get my bearings here and understand a lot of what this is about. But all of that said, we are nowhere close to finding a conclusion to what all this means. I mean, I've been asked many times over the past week. So is LIV done? Like they're done next year? It's like, man, I don't know. Who do you talk to? Dustin Johnson had a comment today saying, yeah, no, everyone I've talked to at LIV, they're going forward. They're starting to put together the 2024 schedule. That none of that would surprise me that, the folks that are running LIV are putting together a schedule for next year, and the folks that own LIV are looking into pushing everything together and not having a league next year. That and the two may not have spoken, even though they, in theory, work together. So they don't know. The players don't know, and I certainly can only speculate. I don't have any answers about a whole lot of this right now.
Well, if you're speculating, I mean, I think it's fair to say that most of us assume, even a week later, with the lack of information, is like it doesn't make that much sense to keep LIV around, somehow integrate the two. But then there have also been rumors like, the PGA Tour is going to have either a fine system or way to make these guys their way back. Well, it's like you guys just went into the business with the people they're in business with. How can you possibly do this? The complications of this, clearly they had to break the news, right? Because they were worried about it getting out. Is that fair to say? Is that what you've heard?
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. I also think that the litigation, you and I have talked about this, the pending litigation, which was going to go into a discovery phase where the PGA Tour said, yeah, there's some stuff that we don't really want to get out. And then the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia says, you know what? Actually, we have a skeleton or two in the closet as well. We might not want that going public either. Who knows what that could be? But they said, you know what? Let's start talking and start putting something together. And yes, that's why this was announced before it started going public, before there were any rumors and speculation about it. But unlike most deals where a deal is made, a press release is sent out, and here's to the T everything that we know. This was like, send it out and we'll figure out everything later. And now they're trying to figure everything out sort of in real time.
As we sit here, from what talking to players, talking to agents, talking to whoever, Jay Monahan's status in the player circle, is it fair to say that it's not a lot of people are high on it? I'm talking about the PGA, the players.
Yeah, no, that's very fair to say. As for his job, and I've been asked a lot over the last week, is Jay going to keep his role? And well, the players can't really vote him out, first of all. Secondly, Jay was already named by the board of the to be determined named company that is going to have the PGA Tour, DP World, and Public Investment Fund under their umbrella. He's already been named by the board as the CEO. So even if he's not quote unquote PGA Tour commissioner, he is going to have a hand in this. Oh, by the way, if you want to know how you become named by the board, well, you start the board, and then you start the board with people who want you to do this job, and then those people vote for you, and that's how you get this job. A lot of weird stuff. I'm learning a whole lot about business and about money, but in case you were wondering, John, money makes the world go around, and so this is all about the Benjamins, and PGA Tour was. They were hurting. I don't know if they were quite hemorrhaging, as I've heard from some people, but they were hurting. They were putting up a lot of this money for the designated events. This was not coming out of the sponsors' pockets. They couldn't ask for that. So they were taking it out of the reserves, putting it up for these events. And then you don't have anything coming back in. Like, how are you going to replace that money? So they were hurting. If this is a chance to double, triple, quadruple the PGA Tour's valuation, look, there have been a lot of instances in the past where a business says, that's our rival, we'll never go into business with them. And then all of a sudden they go, well, unless we could all make a whole lot of money, that would be cool. And so money talks. And it's talking once again right here.
For sure. Well, Cam Smith, you'll just be the hottest gambler in the history of gambling if he wins it. But I'm going to have a couple shackles on Cam Smith for sure. You and I have been talking about him, I think, since the last major when he showed. It was like, God, this is going to be a good fit. And so will the Open. I mean, he's going to be a factor. It's why he was a big loss when they signed him. Enjoy the week. Are you out there all week interviewing people for Sirius?
All week. That's exactly what I'm doing. I've got, let's see, This afternoon, I'm going to be talking to Scheffler, Cantlay, and Homa. Three guys that we could very well see in the mix come Sunday afternoon. And then, yeah, I'll be hanging out in what they call the flash area, the interview area, interviewing players as they finish Thursday through Sunday, doing all the interviews for the U.S. Open radio broadcast.
Well, enjoy it. We will listen to you on Sirius when we're in the car driving to pick up our lunch to not miss much of the golf tournament. So we appreciate you. Have a good time, and tell Leo, tell Spielberg, tell J-Lo and Affleck we all say hello.
Lionel Richie's house is like right over here. It's not
how
small,
big is that thing?
By the way, not small. I mean, I think it's like something. It's a ridiculous number of square feet. It was like 70,000 square feet, like something like the dumbest number I've ever heard. Square feet. And he's not there this week. He's like on tour. It's like the biggest thing that's ever happened in his backyard. I mean, can you imagine this is in your backyard and you're like, I gotta go over and do this thing in England. Sorry.
What? When I played there and pointed it out, or maybe it was at the end of the round, we were having beers with the member. He thought he guessed $75-80 million. And this was 2.5 years ago, the price of the house. So, Lionel probably got in early. Maybe a $10-15 million purchase. People called him crazy. I would say it's a pretty good investment. Whatever he purchased that bad boy for.
Dancing on the ceiling. I mean, you put out an album like that, and all of a sudden, you're living in the backyard.
You're living like a king. You're living like a king, baby. Okay, see you, Sobel.
Thanks, buddy.